All right, Joe. I guess first, can I take you back in time to your Montreal Expos, and just what was it like to play for the Expos?
Well, it's a thrill and a dream come true for me. I signed as an amateur free agent back in those days with the Expos. It was before Canadians had to go through the draft. So I was with Montreal in my 6th season. I was playing in AAA Ottawa and got the call to the big leagues. And I mean, it's one thing as a minor leaguer, your dream is to get to the big leagues. So that was one thing. But to be a Canadian and to play for a Canadian team in the big leagues, that's what probably made it extra special. And I'll never forget the day that I was informed in AAA that I was going to the big leagues. And my wife and I were on a plane the next morning to Pittsburgh, and I made my debut, I believe, the next day at the old Three Rivers Stadium, which to me, again, has a lot of baseball lore and history there where the Steelers played, and I thought that was pretty cool because I was a big sports fan as a kid.
Amazing stuff. And I don't know if the timelines were exactly correct, but did you get to see Vladimir Guerrero Sr. there as well?
I was in spring training with Vladdy Sr. because he was just behind me, and he got to the big leagues, I want to say, in 95. I was up in 93, but I was in spring training with him. I saw the superstar that was coming, and you notice those guys. They stand out. And one of my first big league camps, it's when you're a young player, you get to go to big league spring training, you see a lot of the veteran players. And to be in spring training with the likes of Larry Walker and Moises Salou and all the list goes on, Marquise Grissom, all these guys. Marquise I played with my very first year. But to see a guy like Vladdy Sr. in spring training, and we had heard all about him coming up through the minor leagues and that he was going to be pretty special, and he was pretty special.
So what is that like for you to come full circle, Vladdy Sr. to Vladdy Jr., and you call him Blue Jays games?
Yeah, it is quite funny because when I talk to Vladdy Jr. now, it's like, yeah, I played with your dad, you know? So I'm kind of aging myself a little bit, but it's a thrill actually to look back and to have that short time that I did with Vladdy Sr., but then to see Vladdy, and they're different players, different builds, different types of hitters, and of course all Blue Jays fans are waiting for Vladdy Jr. to get back to being the Vladdy Jr. we saw a couple years ago.
Well, I was going to ask you that. Do you ever get not amazed seeing Vladdy? Like, and is what is the ceiling of a young Vladdy Jr. and Bo Bichette?
I think when you use the word ceiling, it's a good word because we saw what Vladdy can do a couple of years ago when he was chasing for that MVP. And the ceiling is so high, and it's almost like early in his career he set that. So now we're kind of saying, hey, where's that 1,000 OPS guy, right? He can probably have an 800 OPS in his sleep, but I think we'd love to see him in that 900 range because I think he's very capable of it, and maybe even more if we can see him chase that. Bo Bichette's been unbelievable, and I think when you look at the strides he has made in his young career, and I've had guys that played in the big leagues a long time, many of them tell me that it can take 3, 4, 5 years in the big leagues before you really get comfortable with who you are as a hitter, your development, and a lot of it is based on experience. Bo comes from a baseball family, as you know, with his dad, and I'm sure he's learned so much baseball over the years, but what happens is you need to be in the batter's box. You need those at-bats. How is this pitcher pitching you? How is the league adjusting to you? And it goes back and forth, and I think Bo is in a really good spot right now.
And I'm just curious as well, just to get your perception of just the Alek Monoah situation. What all went down there, and do you feel he can bounce back down there in spring training complex?
Well, first and foremost, I certainly believe he can bounce back because he's Alek Monoah. And what we saw in the big leagues for a couple of years was no fluke. This wasn't 10 good big league starts or something. This guy was a really, really good major league pitcher, and you don't just lose that. So for whatever reason, whether they're mechanical breakdowns, whatever it is they're doing, and I'm sure they're going to do a deep, deep dive in the middle of it right now, figure out what was going wrong with his body, with his delivery. You usually start from the ground up. Is it in the stride? Is it in his release? Where is it coming from? And getting to that desired release point. All of those things, I'm sure they'll figure it out. I'm sure he's going to be back. The timeline, nobody knows. We certainly don't know. The sooner the better, but what a nice piece that would have to be back into this rotation if it was, even if it's around the All-Star break. But if it's the old Alek Monoah, what a jolt that would be.
For sure, that could be like a trade in itself, right? Well, do you feel though? I mean, I feel like some of the Blue Jays starting pitchers still fly under the radar a bit, particularly with a guy like Chris Bassett. Do you feel even with the loss of Manoah that this is a great rotation potentially?
Yeah, I think when you look at Gausman first of all, he's the head of the rotation, bar none. He is just elite of elite, one of the best in the league. And then you look at the signing of Chris Bassett, and you expect him to be Chris Bassett, which is give you a lot of innings, go deep in ball games, kind of like Kevin, And that's a big thing for your rotation because it keeps that bullpen somewhat rested. And those things pay dividends later in the season. And we'll be talking probably more about that in August, in September, and hopefully deep into October. But I think the other thing is we have to remember what Jose Barrios has done this season, because he had quite a setback last year too. He wasn't the Jose Barrios that we had seen for many, many years. And he was the model of consistency. That's when he was at his best in his career. And it looks like he's back to that. So while Alek Monoah had his troubles this year, and he's not here right now, Jose Barrios really stepped it up. So it's almost like 3/5 of the rotation that we expect to be really good. Well, they are really good. It's just maybe a different 3 than we anticipated. And if you say Kikuchi can keep doing what he's doing at the back of the rotation, that's what you want from your number 5 starter. So I think the rotation is in very good hands. It'll be even better hands when we get Monoah back.
I love that. I love that. Last one for you. We'll get you out of here on this. How important is it? Let me phrase it like this. How important is it for Montreal to potentially get a baseball team back? How big would that be for Canada, for Montreal?
Well, it'd be pretty cool coming from a guy that played there. And when a city loses a team in any sport, you don't expect it to come back. And I know they're trying very hard. I don't know all the logistics behind it. We've heard all the rumors with Tampa Bay and sharing and all that stuff. I didn't think that was going to work. I just don't see that as being feasible at all. I'd love to see it. But at the same time, the way things are right now with the Toronto Blue Jays being the only team in Canada, especially with the way they're playing right now and the years that they're giving this country right now and the fans in Canada, this is pretty exciting too.
All right, Joe, I really appreciate the time, man. Best of luck the rest of the season. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.